Okay, on our way down to the beach here, I thought you might want to meet this individual. This is called a London plane tree. I'm going to have Bay look up to the top with you and along the trunk. It's a very unusual tree. It's in the plane tree family. And their relative, who lives in our area, is called the American sycamore. So this is, in actuality, a hybrid, the London plane tree, and it combines the American sycamore with an Asian sycamore, and together they make the London plane tree. And what's so unusual really is the bark, as you see. Takes on a rather camouflage look to it as bark is shed, and the bark beneath has a greenish hue to it. If you find our American sycamores, the bark hue is whitish instead of greenish, and they produce fruiting bodies that look like little balls, little Christmas decorations that come one at a time, but the London plane tree has them two at a time in terms of their fruiting bodies. So this is an unusual tree that you'll often see planted ornamentally just because they're so colorful at all times of the year. We have many of these on campus if you've ever noticed them. So here's a new one for you, the London plane tree. See, this is their leaf, and this is their leaf, and at first glance you would think this is a maple. But as we know, when it comes to plant taxonomy, we mustn't look at the leaves. We must look at the reproductive structures, the fruits or the flowers, to make those taxonomic associations. Okay, right now, Bay is taking a picture of the fruiting bodies of these plane trees. So this is what members of the plane tree family produce. So our sycamores look the same. And these are aggregates of seeds. And when they're fresh, they're in a nice circle, hanging down. And we just found a few on the ground here. So these are remnants of the fruiting bodies of a London plane tree. All right, we're taking a picture now from the beach, looking out over the river. Look at how calm the water is today. Clouds have really come in, so it's much darker here now. I've had to change from my sunglasses to my regular glasses. And right now, as I look at the water, I am simply seeing ring-billed gulls in the water. I've been keeping my eyes open for some other species of gull. Oh, here we have some. Those are mergansers that just flew over us. I'm not sure if Bay was able to get a look at them. There are 4 common mergansers. The males brightly colored white with green heads. Females with kind of a reddish head with a wild hairdo. So those were a little flock of common mergansers, and they're one of our sea ducks. So they're one of our deeper diving ducks, and they, unlike other ducks, have serrations on their bill, because unlike other ducks, they're primarily fish feeders. And they use those serrations to grab and hold on to fish that they're catching for their meals. But a beautiful duck, the common merganser. We also have another species of merganser in this area called the red-breasted merganser, who we actually commonly see in these parts as well. Pretty quiet out on the water here today. I'm seeing some gulls and just that small flock of mergansers. So I think what we're going to do is to head to another part of the island. And actually, there's something very exciting there waiting for us. It's a real nature happening, a seasonal happening that I'd like to share with you. So I hope we get some good pictures of that for you. So let's leave the beach and let's head on up to another neighborhood, and we'll see if there's more action up there. We just stopped here for a moment because we found flowers. It's pretty hard to find flowers out in the open this early in the season, so it caught our attention. These are chickweeds. Chickweeds are members of the pink family, and something that's characteristic of the chickweed is that their petals are split or notched. We don't find it in all members of the pink family, but it's really quite characteristic of members of this family. Caryophyllaceae is the name of the family, the pink family. And chickweed are quite common in open fields and lawns. So it's nice to see a flower at this time of the year. Oh, you got to get them. Come here, that group of 4 right there?
Yeah, got them.
Okay. Folks, right now we see waterfowl moving to our left. Those are red-breasted mergansers. And the male has spotted area on the chest, and they have a pretty wild looking hairdo and look a bit different from the common mergansers. And so around us here, we have the red-breasted mergansers, and there's a great blue heron flying above to our left. You know, we mentioned before the mechanisms for identifying birds, and I want to elaborate upon that just for a moment. Now, normally one of the first things that attracts us is the vocalizations. And birds share generally 2 kinds of vocalizations, calls and songs. Calls are used by both male and female to express anger or fear or warning, or just a means of keeping in touch with the flock. Songs are more elaborate, more complex, and are generally shared by males on territory during the breeding season. And it's those songs that are designed to attract a mate. There are some exceptions in the bird world in terms of females singing. Mockingbirds, rose-breasted grosbeaks, cardinals, those girls know how to sing too, which is nice. But generally you have calls and songs, and that's one of the first things that can grab you. Then, as we're looking at these other birds flying around, as we mentioned before, you're looking at color or color patterns that stick out, if you're able to see them. And then, thirdly, it's shape. And that refers to the bill, to the entire body, the silhouette, shape of the tail, shape of the wings. So you're looking at shape in all those ways to pick out an individual. And aside from that, you also have the size, of course. And you can, in a sense, use a scale to help you figure out the size of a bird. Bigger than a sparrow, smaller than a robin, bigger than a robin, smaller than a crow. You get the idea. So size is very important in that regard. Behavior basically speaks of the way a bird swims, flies, walks, perches. So any unusual type of behavior that connects to a particular species is helpful. And then you're looking at habitat and range. I mean, should a bird be in this area? Who should be in the neighborhood? Who should not? And you put all of these 6 factors together, and then obviously that's what you use to figure out who you're looking at. Off in the distance there is another great blue heron flying, big wings, and the wings are a bit curved as they fly, curved downward, and big wing strokes, and you can recognize them from afar. Unlike the cranes, the herons fly with their necks up in what's called an S-curve. So if you see that neck up in that curve, and you see those large wings and those large bodies, in this area you've got a great blue heron. And that shouldn't surprise us, because right around the corner from here we're going to take you to a heron rookery, which is that spring nature happening that I mentioned earlier. Very large birds you would expect to nest separately, secretively, but when you catch them in April, they nest in huge numbers and form what's called a rookery. And one of their rookeries is right around the corner from us here. So hopefully we'll get a picture of them. Aside from them, I'm seeing these red-breasted mergansers flying around us here. And from here, let's take a little walk and see who else is in the neighborhood. And by the way, since we're standing right here on the shoreline, we're looking at another tree that's new to you right here. And as we angle upward, we can see the fruiting bodies, which are pods. And when you see pods in this manner, often you're looking at someone in the pea family, which is sometimes called Fabaceae, or they're legumes, Leguminosae, the pea family. And this is a pea tree. And this tree is a locust. And this is our naturally occurring locust in wetter environments called a black locust. The bark is deeply furrowed, and the fruiting bodies are undeniable when you find them. And then we're also surrounded here on the edges with black willows. Again, a tree that typifies very wet environments. Lots of willows and locusts in this immediate location. What Bay is taking a look at now is the coastline right across this little inlet from us. And that whole area is the rookery that we were focused upon. A rookery is a gathering of birds that are nesting together. It is a community of birds. And as I look with my binoculars, because you probably will just see big circles as we're filming, but as I put my binoculars on, I could see the birds coming in and out of that area. And what I'm seeing are 2 kinds of birds. I'm seeing the great blue herons, who have traditionally nested in those trees, but I'm also seeing the double-crested cormorants, who in the last 3 or 4 years have been sneaking into this rookery and attempting to take it over. So I'm seeing both birds scattered along that shoreline in those nests. And they are coming and going. Some are standing right on top of the nest, others in the trees. And it's really quite an unusual sight to see. Sadly, most of the birds I'm seeing are cormorants, and here comes a great blue heron up into the tree. Can you see him okay? Can you see him flying to the left of the tree?
Oh, yeah. I see him.
Okay. So they are both there, but it looks like the cormorants are in greater number. Cormorants in years past never were much of a problem in the Great Lakes area or around Lake Champlain, but since the 70s their numbers have grown considerably. And so they have been taking over territory from other birds like these great blue herons. And people generally don't like the double-crested cormorant. They eat the fish that the fishermen go after, and wherever their rookeries exist, their guano or droppings defoliate all the trees because of their high acid content. So they create wastelands on islands and along shorelines. So people don't like them as a result. So in more recent years, the DEC, as well as individuals from New England, like Vermont, have been killing cormorants, and many times putting an oil on their eggs when they find them nesting so the eggs don't hatch, or in some cases outright shooting them to reduce their numbers, since they had grown so numerous through the years. So the cormorant is a bird under management in that regard. And what we're seeing here is one of the reasons why. The fact that they are competitors for species like the heron and have been gradually taking over their rookeries. Folks, here's a new tree for you. I see some large ones along the edge in here. Here's a small one. And the thing that you pick out quickly is that the branching is opposite. And the growth, the new growth on the bark has kind of a white coating to it and is kind of green to purplish in color as well. And this is one that you'd be hard-pressed to recognize even when they're in leaf, because they have a compound leaf. Opposite, compound. This is actually a maple, but this is one called an ash leaf maple or a box elder. And they're different from all the other maples because they have the compound leaf, and they're also dioecious, which means male and female reproductive structures are on separate individuals. So they're quite an unusual member of Acer, the genus. And here we have, if you remember, maples were downgraded as a family, and now they're in what we call Sapondaceae, which is the soapberry family. So this is a young ash leaf maple or box elder, and I seem to be surrounded by them right in here in this immediate area. So there are some larger ones in front of us here, and this is a maple that likes the wet neighborhoods. That's why they're here, because they flourish where it's wet.
Ready?
Okay. Before we close, I thought we would just take one more stop. Since our session today has been all about birds, I thought it would be nice to just talk about some of the unique characteristics that make a bird a bird. When you think about it, everything about birds is about low weight and high energy. That's how they survive. When it comes to low weight, consider birds don't have teeth. If they had teeth, they would need heavy jaws to hold on to those teeth. And so, lacking teeth, they could have light jaws and light bills. Secondly, the bones of birds. Generally speaking, and there are exceptions, generally speaking, birds have hollow bones. And of course, the hollow bones keep them nice and light. Likewise, birds lack a bladder and they lack a urethra, an organ for storing urine and releasing urine. And when you think about it, that again would make a bird too heavy to get around and fly comfortably. So lacking a bladder and a urethra, their waste matter, their liquid waste matter, their nitrogen-based wastes combine with their fecal matter and come out together. So when you see bird droppings, you'll see the whitish part to their droppings, and that's the liquid portion that joins in with the solid matter. That's how you always know you're looking at a bird dropping. You see the white uric acid is what it is, concentrated in that form. So that also keeps them low weight. Their feathers, of course, their feathers probably, evolutionarily speaking, were designed for heat retention, to insulate them. But of course, being as they are and designed as they are, they're very effective for getting someone off the ground. They also have very strong chest muscles, and they have, for flight, obviously, and they also have a very fast metabolism. So when it comes to mammals, usually our body temperatures range from, say, 98 to 102 degrees for most mammals. Birds range from around 107 degrees to 110 degrees in terms of their temperature. So their body chemistry is a bit faster than ours, and that's why they digest food very quickly. And you know, when it comes to high energy, birds, generally speaking, eat high energy foods. They're eating insects, they're eating berries, they're eating seeds. With just a few exceptions, like geese, who graze on grass, they're eating high energy foods, which are processed quickly in their bodies. The geese that we're seeing, and I see a couple flying right here, through their process of feeding, they could be defecating every 3 minutes and leave us more than a pound of droppings in a day. That's why people don't like it when they're on the golf courses or in the parks. They tend to litter up the neighborhood quite substantially with their droppings. But such is the case when you have numbers of waterfowl in good numbers, high numbers. So these are just a few concepts I wanted you to be aware of. Low weight, high energy. This is what birds are all about. This is how they make a living. This is how they survive. Right above our head is a song sparrow. I don't know if you heard that vocalization, but it sort of went bum, 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 and then you have a ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, which I cannot imitate. But that is the song of the song sparrow, and there seem to be a number of them in this area. And we just kicked up a couple of American robins here, and so the neighborhood is getting filled with birds during this nesting time, during this mating time. So that's always nice to see. Gives you some sense that spring is upon us. So here now we've taken a little journey wandering around a few areas here at Beaver Island State Park. Our focus obviously on field ornithology, and what we've covered today is a little historic overview, so you could have some background as to how this field grew and evolved. And we talked rather specifically about the waterfowl family here and about their characteristics and those that make up the family. We spoke about birds and their unique characteristics. High energy, low weight, very important. And we found some interesting individuals along the way. Some mergansers, some osprey, some red-winged blackbirds, song sparrows and robins, things are picking up. That's always nice to see and always good to hear. So that concludes our hike today, our working with the birds today, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time, where we probably are heading to the marshes and ponds, and we'll do some aquatic surveys together. So I'll look forward to that with you. Hope you're all staying well, hope you're all healthy, and I hope you're taking good field notes with us along the way. We'll see you next time.